Here's Guy Wehman, Ben Brunson, and Frank Vernuccio inside the news.
Welcome back to our last segment of Inside the News. This is where we put a bow on the program. Glad to have you with us. Frank Vernuccio, top left, if you're watching us on YouTube or AUN TV. And you can also hear us on SoundCloud and our affiliates all across the country. We've got Ben Brunson. He's in the bottom middle. I'm in the top right. Okay, the CDC. And once the big revered organization, we're going to be looking out for you. And we've got the Centers for Disease Control, and we look at all these germs and microbes and everything. And now it seems to be at odds with even science sometimes here, Ben.
Yes, unfortunately, we have a number of institutions in this country that I'm not a big fan of big government, but some are very important. The FDA is very important in what they do. They've stayed largely out of the political fray so far, although they're going to get in it with the vaccine approval coming soon. But the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, has a great global reputation. It has been a premier institution on the front edge of attacking emerging diseases, viruses, bacteria, defining them and leading the effort to defeat these things as they emerge globally. And unfortunately, under the current director, Dr. Robert Redfield, they have shown themselves to be at best confused, but probably realistically speaking, incompetent on a lot of the issues around this pandemic. They changed their advice. The latest is they talked about this being aerosolized, and then they've just retracted that as being, well, that was a rough draft that shouldn't have gone out. So they look increasingly bad and incompetent. It is exactly the wrong thing. I think the CDC is in desperate need of new leadership. I think, as far as I'm concerned, and I think a lot of people feel this way on a bipartisan basis, Dr. Redfield has lost the confidence of the American people. And it's a shame because it is a very critically important institution and it needs to maintain its reputation.
You know, when I heard the comment from Redfield that the only way to cure the pandemic was wearing a mask and that the vaccine's is not going to take care of it, I had to shake my head, as well as the rest of Americans are saying, what are you talking about? The vaccine is what but if you, I don't know, maybe you just shove the mask in your nose and inside your mouth and then you can't even breathe anymore. All right, hot button topics, Frank, unless you want to comment on that before you hot button.
It's simply a demonstration of the increasing politicalization of the deep state, of the bureaucracy. One of the reasons the reaction to Donald Trump's election was so violent from the internal swamp creatures of Washington was that he was the first president, realistically, to challenge that bureaucracy. That means that the hysteria we've seen in the media and throughout the bureaucracy is going to be increased even further in a second Trump term where he doesn't have to worry about running for re-election, and he's already shown his disdain for the media.
And now here's Frank with his hot button topic.
The rhetoric of the campaign of 2020 has gone as far over the top as it can possibly go. We've already heard John Kerry say that there should be riots in the streets if Donald Trump wins re-election. We've heard AOC say that no matter who wins the election, there should be demonstrations and riots in the street. We have seen threats of violence. We have seen absolutely every over-the-top statement you can possibly hear. This is not a campaign like any other because this is not a race like any other. Joe Biden is not running as an individual candidate. He's running as the representative of the deep state. Donald Trump, on the other hand, considers himself the destroyer of the deep state and the bringing back of a more traditional American form of democracy. The positions couldn't be clearer. The lines couldn't be drawn any straighter.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a drum I beat a lot, which is Iran. They have announced to the world that they are going to no longer abide by the limitations on uranium enrichment that were imposed under the JCPOA. We have dropped out, but Iran is still bound by that agreement. It is still in effect with European nations and Russia and China. And they have simply said we're going to ignore the limitations imposed on us. And why is that important? You have to enrich the more medium enriched uranium you have on hand, the easier it is to break out. Enrichment is a process of going from 0.3% uranium-235 up to 80 to 90%. And it's the more your base stockpile exists, the easier it is to break out. So this is a real issue. This is what they want to go. They want to go nuclear.
All right, that's going to do it for today's program. Frank, thanks.
Great being with you, and thanks to our audience.
Ben, good program.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
All right, and that's going to do it for this week's edition of Inside the News. It's actually going to do it for the month of September, and we're going to be going into the last quarter of the year, and a lot's going to be on our plate. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.